India, 90% of people still have arranged marriages. That might feel odd to those of us who grew up in the US, like 16-year-old Ritika Maniguli. She's a first-generation Indian American caught between two traditions when it comes to love. Will she choose her own path or go down the traditional arranged marriage route like her mother? Ritika has this story for RadioActive.
We had an arranged marriage, but guess what? We hadn't even met each other face to face 1 week before actual marriage.
That's my mom talking about our wedding day. After only 1 week of meeting each other, 18 years later, my parents are still in love. This is what my dad has to say about it.
When I was looking for a wife, I wanted to make sure she was adaptable, easygoing, and educated. When I found your mom, I knew she was the right one and that it would work out.
I love their stories. I was born in the US, and I consume so much American culture that I appreciate the times when I realize I'm a person of two cultures. Indian weddings are the celebration of celebrations. There are hundreds of people, tons of food, the most colorful dresses imaginable, and music. And all of it is arranged, including the marriage itself. And my parents want that for me.
I would like if you can follow tradition, and I would be sad if it was someone whose family isn't Indian because I wouldn't be able to connect with them.
I want to make my own decisions on who I marry, but the cost is disappointing my mom. Indians still get married to people in their own culture because it's so engraved into tradition. So how could I ever break from that? According to the Pew Research Center, in 2010, only 2% of Indian Americans married someone who wasn't Indian. And that's crazy to me. So I decided to call someone closer to my age for a better perspective.
I didn't expect to go the arranged marriage route.
That's my cousin Abba from Texas. She wanted to have a love marriage, but she was 23 and family pressures began to mount. Before she knew it, her parents put her on a wedding website. And to say the least, she wasn't excited.
Everybody wants their Cinderella moment, and everybody wants that person who they meet and fall in love with, but sometimes that doesn't happen.
My cousin ended up finding her happily ever after through an arranged marriage. So what's the worst that could happen if I chose to have a love marriage instead of having my parents arrange it? Our family friend Neetu tells me about how she chose to have a love marriage with someone from a different religion.
Once I told my parents, I think there was a lot of internal chaos in the family. And then after I got married, many aunts and uncles told me how I've hurt my parents, how I've done them wrong.
Her family didn't talk to her at first, but Neetu was true to herself. And eventually, they came around. I know personally my family wouldn't respond like Neetu's, but vaha hamesha ek sankat hai. There's always a risk. My parents are happy. So is my cousin and a lot of other Indian families I know, which just makes me more stumped about which route to take. Well, unlike my parents, I have more than a week to figure it out, and I'm only going into 11th grade, so I still have a while to decide. Having a foot in two very different worlds is hard, but since I do, I'll partake of both and see where it takes me. For RadioActive, this is Ritika Maniguli.
Young adults who leave the Catholic Church stopped identifying as Catholics by the median age of 13. That's according to a recent study from a Catholic research center. RadioActive's Ep8 tries to find a way to save her church, community, and her identity, starting with her own family.
My brother, Samson Paulos, always felt disconnected from the Eritrean Catholic Church. Every Sunday, as a little boy, he would sit in the front next to the altar, dozing off whenever the priest spoke. For hours, he would hear a foreign language but never actually listened. It was then when he realized that he wasn't getting anything out of church.
I don't understand language, so it's hard to, I see myself wasting my time. I'm only coming here for the sake of looking like a morally righteous person to people who I don't really care about their opinions.
Language is a huge barrier in the Eritrean Catholic Church. The entire Mass is spoken in Tigrinya, a language mainly understood by the older generations of Eritreans. The church offered language classes, but the lack of structure made it really hard for the kids to learn. Since the two generations can't really communicate with each other, kids dread attending church. This is why Samson is distancing himself from church, but he's not ready to leave it entirely.
If you're not believing in God, then that's a no-no. That being said, if I do come out, there's no benefits going to come out of it. You're just going to be either yelled at, shunned, or both.
For most of us kids, church was a place where we made lifelong friends. It was a place where we could call home. Separating ourselves from church risks not only judgment, but our community. For my father, Paulos Kelete, church and community go hand in hand. In Eritrea, his family raised him to love God. Church made him feel safe.
Way back to my country is people every Saturday. All people that came to church, they participate, they donate, they pray together, they love each other.
Even though Catholicism is very important to my dad, it's the community that matters most to him. Because church is so heavily rooted in our family, my dad never had a reason to question his faith.
You cannot see tomorrow, but tomorrow is coming. You cannot see God by your eyes, but you live by God's power.
He wishes that the new generation could value church as much as he does. But my brother has different ideals, so I had them sit down and talk about solutions to conserving the Eritrean church. However, it didn't really work out.
I need you guys to turn to each other. Chair needs to turn to each other.
There's no camera.
This made them reflect on their paths and the choices that they wish they made.
Regrets is like a rocking chair, give you something to do, but you're not going nowhere with it. So, and no, as you said earlier, you can focus on the future. The past is already written.
And for my dad,
do you have any regrets?
No.
You have no regrets for the new generation?
Well, I have, but what I have to do?
Exactly. What do we do now? My brother decided to take his own path, and my dad is trying his best to keep the tradition alive. But I don't really know where I stand. I know that church comes with rich culture that makes us Eritrean, so I feel as if I'm letting down my community if I don't go to church, if I don't continue the tradition. But I need to find a solution now, whatever that may be. For KUOW Radioactive, this is your girl, Ep8.